Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to easily enhance the security and user management of your Next.js application with Clerk. Clerk seamlessly integrates into both client-side and server-side components, making it a powerful tool for your project. Let's get started. To begin, we'll be using the application we previously worked on when discussing internationalization. I'll explain why in just a moment. You can find the link to that video in the video description. Once you have your Next.js application ready, you'll need to install Clerk's Next.js SDK. This provides you with pre-built components, hooks, and essential helpers for Next.js API routes, server-side rendering, and middleware. Installing Clerk is as simple as running npm install clerk/nextjs in your terminal. Next, it's time to configure Clerk. If you don't have a Clerk account yet, you can sign up on their website to obtain your Clerk front-end API and Clerk back-end API keys. Once you're signed in, create a new application and select your preferred sign-in methods. In our case, we'll go with email and Google, but Clerk offers various providers to choose from. On your app's dashboard, you can specify your framework. In our case, it's Next.js. We'll need to add these keys to our env.local file, Next public Clerk publishable key and Clerk secret key. Additionally, make sure to refer to Clerk's documentation for adding environment variables related to the sign-in, sign-up, after sign-up, and after sign-in paths. If you're using GitHub, remember to add env-local to your git ignore. That's it for the configuration. Now let's create the sign-in and sign-up pages under the local folder responsible for internationalization. Create a folder that isn't considered a root by enclosing its name in parentheses. This structure will help us manage the layout for both pages. For the sign-in page, follow this structure and include the sign-in component from the Clerk package in the page file. Do the same for the sign-up page. Finally, create a layout and an error page. Next, you'll want to add the Clerk provider wrapper to your application. The Clerk provider component surrounds your Next.js application, providing active session and user context to Clerk's hooks and other components. A good practice is to have Clerk provider wrap the body to enable context accessibility throughout the app, so we'll add it to our root layout. With Clerk installed and integrated into your application, it's time to decide which pages should be public and which should be protected behind authentication. To achieve this, we'll create a middleware.ts file in the root folder. Since we're reusing our previous API for internationalization, we already have a middleware in place. So the question is, how can we use two middleware functions in our application, one for internationalization and one for authentication? But before we dive into that, let's take a moment to understand what a middleware is in Next.js. A middleware allows you to execute code before a request is fully processed. Depending on the incoming request, you can modify the response by rewriting it, redirecting, adjusting request or response headers, or responding directly. Imagine you've requested the following homepage. When you select English as your preferred language, this information is found in your request header, except language parameter. The middleware will redirect you to /n/home. If you choose French, it'll redirect you to /fr/home. As we discussed in a previous video on internationalization, we created a folder named locale enclosed in brackets, which means it's dynamic and it can accept variables. This allows you to load the appropriate content based on the chosen language. This middleware detects the client's language preference and redirects them to the correct localized path. The authentication middleware works similarly, but without any parameters. It is dependent on the path matcher in the middleware. When you request a page, the middleware will direct you to the public page if the requested page is public. If not, if there is an active user session, it will redirect you to the requested page. Otherwise, it will redirect you to the sign-in page. To make both internationalization and authentication work seamlessly together, we can chain these middleware functions. First, the middleware will return the internationalization middleware. And then the authentication middleware will run the middleware before authentication. We'll mark the landing page as public, so it won't require authentication. Now let's see it in action. As you can see, we can access the landing page without any issues. But when we navigate to the home page, it prompts us to sign in as expected. This setup works seamlessly for both French and English. You can also add a user button from the Clerk package to the navigation bar for managing your account. And there you have it. You've now learned how to handle authentication with Clerk and chain middleware in Next.js 13. Thanks for watching.